Okay. It's gonna start in a couple of seconds and we'll get to greet all our audience and they will also be able to see us. All right. So we are live. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us in today's fourth session. We have the pleasure today to have our guest speaker from Mexico, Mr. Rafael Cervantes, who has generously accepted to present and share his expertise with us, whom I had the pleasure to have met last year through Mestizo. And I am so grateful and honored to have you today with us. Rafael, please tell us a little bit about you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Lorena, for this kind invitation. My name, Juan Rafael Cervantes, your friend from Mexico. I am a professor in the University of Nuevo León, Monterrey, Mexico, and also the academic chair of Mextesol, the Association of English Teachers here in Mexico, with almost 50,000 members in the country. It's my honor to be here today. I really enjoy and love teaching, and I love to share and share what I know and learn from others. And that's the reason I am here. So honored, and my greetings to all guys there in Argentina, the champions of the world of football, and other guys in South America. My pleasure to be here. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Rafael. That was such great introduction. So, in order to start our expert teacher tip for a session, I'd like to ask you, what are those tips that you have that you would like to share with us today?
Great, Lorena. I prepared 5 tips or activities that I want to share. I don't know if I could share the screen or you want me just to speak about the tips.
It's up to you.
Well, I'm sharing the screen. Now you can see it. And well, this is what I want to share with you today. Obviously, I am open and cooperating for your questions. And let's make this a very friendly and nice experience in this interview with the tips I could share with you. I want to say hi to all guys in South America, also my friends and also some students here in Mexico. And well, let's start. I'm going to share with you 5 tips. The first one, Energy Monday. You begin the week with energy and good vibes and maybe planning all the activities you'll have with a specific group during the week. The second one is going to be creating sentences. You make students create sentences from the examples given in the book, and they create very similar sentences, but that makes them feel confident to build more sentences, to play a little bit with other words with more vocabulary, and they reinforce the grammar structures. The third one could be elaborating questions. In general, students usually answer questions. Well, what about elaborating questions and having a process of reflection? Because elaborating questions, choosing the topics to ask other guys makes students reflect and think about a specific topic.
I agree.
Then, another tip could be making personal connections. You go to make texts and tasks yours. You play the roles of the situations given in a book. Finally, reading circles. Discover the magic of reading and the benefits. According to science, because I studied about this and I elaborated work on a thesis on this, there are benefits on reading, and they are not only like the receptive skills. After you read, you produce, and that's the important thing talking about language. That's the way we are going to be sharing today. If you allow me, Lorena, I want to start with the first one. Or if you got a question now, I could listen to you and answer.
No, I think we can get started. And thank you, Paola Canavire, for joining us. I see she just joined our session. So Paola, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them on the chat. And anyone else joining will be happy to read your questions. So you can start,
Great.
and then we can see what is going on with our audience, all right?
Here we go. Let's go with the first tip I gave you today, the Energy Monday. Today is a Wednesday, yes, but depending on your schedule, you can have like the first class of your week, because sometimes you have groups that you teach only Tuesdays and Thursdays or Wednesdays and Fridays. But in a group I have like from Monday to Friday, depending on the level you teach, I call this strategy the Energy Monday. My students know that on Mondays I got more energy. That should be because on Sundays I rest a lot. I spend time with my family, and then when I am starting the class, I call them or I tell the students, hey guys, today is the Energy Monday. Plan your week, get some energy, and plan the activities you are going to fulfill during the week. You can begin the week with energy, good vibes, present brilliant introductory activities or warm-ups. I love warm-ups. In a class, you catch the attention of the students from the warm-up, and that motivates them to plan their week and to fulfill all the activities they have during the week. In an implicit way, you make students plan their activities and have a good beginning of the week. That's the Energy Monday with warm-ups, with some games, and I usually ask questions like about the weather, about something happening in our real life, and that gets students into the topic and into the dynamic of the class. That's the first one.
I love that. My question for you, that you said that you love warm-ups. What is your number one warm-up? Which is the warm-up that you love the most and you see good results with your students?
Asking questions, a very specific and clear question, asking about their mood. For example, is necessary that teachers are aware of students' emotional, for example, emotional situation and the mood, and you is a good warm to ask, how are you feeling today? How was your weekend? But sometimes, depending on the topic, I look for a question that is related to the topic that we're about to present. For example, if the topic is going to be past tense, I easily ask them, how was your weekend, or what did you do last weekend? Remember your last vacation? What can you tell me about your last vacation? And those are the warm-ups I usually use, asking questions, giving them the chance to express the way they feel, and in an implicit way, they will get straight to the point that you are about to present.
That sounds great. I like that. Thank you for sharing that.
If you allow me to continue, let's go to the second tip today. Creating sentences from a basis. Students create sentences from the examples given in the text. Most of our books or our textbooks, they have exercises where you elaborate sentences, and then after a task of 5 sentences, for example, I ask them to add 2 more, using more or less the same structures they just practiced. I allow them to change only a word, maybe 2 words, maybe 3 words, but if they don't have enough vocabulary or they don't feel strong enough, they just like copy paste the base of the sentence, but they create or add a new word that makes them have the opportunity to create a new sentence. Obviously, they are not changing the sentence totally. They are just adding 2 or 3 new words. For example, I visited my grandma yesterday. And then they come, I visited my uncle Peter last Monday. And that's more or less the same structure, but they come with new sentences. And the basis is the exercises from the book. And they come with new sentences that reinforce their self-confidence, and they highlight the grammar points or the grammar structures you're working with.
That is a great one. Yes. I think it also helps students to understand how the language works implicitly without specifically teaching them the grammar, but for them to actually use it. And as they use it, they have the feel of what it is to use it in a specific situation. So I like that one too.
We are definitely living in a new era, and well, in my case, I don't like teaching formulas or grammar formulas, and I explain my students. Sometimes they require it, or in the book there are spots with the formulas and grammar rules. But in general, I love teaching grammar implicitly, in an implicit
I
way.
agree.
The next step is elaborating questions. The process of making questions implies thinking reflectively. Students are used to answer questions, and in the books, they usually ask students to answer questions. But what about inviting them, motivating them to elaborate their own questions individually, in pairs, in trios, and they elaborate questions on a given topic. For example, if you are discussing about visiting the beach or the mountains or vacation again, they receive or read and answer some questions, but what about creating or elaborating their own questions? Sometimes the students realize that they don't know the structure or they don't know how to elaborate questions, and that's a good exercise. You can make them ask the questions in pairs, in trios, or team versus team, or in sometimes I ask them, you ask a question to the teacher, what do you want to ask? Obviously, keeping the same context, the same topic, they elaborate questions. They usually ask questions, but it is important that they reinforce thinking, critical thinking, and thinking reflectively, that they are certain of the structures or questions they are elaborating. This is typical, or this is good after reading an article or reading a book chapter or reading a book, because I have read entire books with my courses or with my students, because that's like a challenge to me, and you're about to see about reading circles.
I see. I have a question in relation to questions. What do you think works better? And this is your personal opinion, of course. Starting with simple yes, no questions or having W8 questions first?
Obviously depends on the level you're teaching, but obviously the best thing to work is going from simple things to the more difficult things. In this case, yes, no questions are typically simpler, and you can start with those with less difficult structures, and then you go into more difficult questions. Students little by little they plan or elaborate more difficult questions that imply reflecting a lot or imply reading the text again, and that's the purpose, that they think that they are critical thinkers. That's a skill that we need to enhance in our students.
Yes, I think also that sometimes, especially if you have academic texts, teaching how to map a text could be a good help for students, and having them ask those questions to the text, I think also helps them find where the information is and how it is organized. Because sometimes if a text is too long, we can get lost, with all the information that you have there, and maybe lose the point of what the text is trying to do, or how the information is going to be presented and how it is connected and all that. And that typically happens in the academic context. And also my question has to do, of course, with, because we do storytelling in our Storyscape, what kind of questions for critical thinking do you normally have, or do you like, to get from your students?
Yes, I think this will take me to the next tip, but I can tell you now, before a parenthesis. The leader of the group is going to be the teacher, but you are a leader that serves. You provide the strategies, you provide techniques, you provide the resources for the students to develop in a great way. For example, using our Storyscape materials, it is good because you got resources there, but there is still like a tutor, or there should be like a leader or teacher guiding students into the best way to follow the process. Like questions should go from simple to the most difficult thing. In the platform that I analyzed, our Storyscape, I found materials from all levels, and it is good to make students understand their own process. Like to make students think, they have to read, and the process of them elaborating questions makes them go from the simple thing to the most difficult thing, and little by little they will ask questions that are making you think more and more. They, in my classes, for example, they also got the opportunity to ask the teacher some questions in a certain way, in a respectful way, challenge teacher about the text, because I love reading, and I invite my students to read, and they are allowed to ask me questions or opinions. In this case, when you're talking about thinking reflectively, it's more about your own opinion, but having a basis of reading the text. And that's more or less, for example, presenting these tips today is because I read about techniques, I read about strategies, there is science behind this, but there is also some experience from my own to share something with you this afternoon, for example.
That is a great answer. It's a combination of everything, your expertise, your experience, reading, which can be, can take different forms and can also provide us for a basis of a conversation that you said, of a debate, if you like it, different perspectives, different ways to approach different topics, cultural topics. I mean, we can go on and on, but I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Rafael.
I was telling you, and maybe as a compliment, making personal connections. When you are elaborating questions, yes, you go from the text, what is given on the text, but then what do you think? You have to play the roles and invite students to play the roles of the characters in a story. I love articles, and I love, for example, I was telling you, reading books. I have worked with The Little Prince in my classes. I have worked with The Hunger Games, something that is more like American. I have worked with one of my favorite, which is David Copperfield, a book which is an autobiography. I love autobiographies. And you go from the basis, which is the given text, and then you be creative. Maybe something I haven't mentioned here, but you got to be very creative. These tips come from the literature, obviously, but come from my expertise, as you said, and that's what I can share. The next tip then is making personal connections. You got to make the texts and the tasks yours. You get in the role. A typical question in my classes is that what would you do in the role of this woman? Or what would you do in this situation? That's a typical question in my class. You have to connect the situations to your personal experiences. The old times of sentences, isolated sentences, is over. You read a sentence and you have to ask yourself, what is this sentence telling me? Do I understand what I am reading? Have I been on this situation? What would I do on this situation? In every sentence. Talking about vocabulary, they got the resources these days to check dictionaries, to check devices, and they get meanings. But in general, to every sentence given, they got to understand it and make it of their own. They have to play the roles, and by this tip, students think in different scenarios, and they solve problems. That's very important. They try to solve problems because when they read something, sometimes they find themselves there in situations of public transportation, economy situations, daily routine problems, etc., etc. And that's what makes an English lesson interesting. They don't go and learn rules. They learn how to communicate.
Exactly. I totally agree with you on that. There is nothing better than learning how to speak a language by speaking it, by using it, by communicating with it, whatever your level is, than just, sitting and listening and reading uh, grammar rules, but with no contextualized use of it. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that one.
Yeah, that's right, Lorena. And finally, I want to share the fifth tip today, which is like the most complete in a certain way, because reading implies many, many, many other things. And actually, that's a work on a thesis I was working with about reading circles or literature circles. And I know the story, the history of them. I know the impact of reading circles in Mexico, in some other countries. I found literature about reading circles in Asia, especially. And well, reading circles, discover the magic of reading and the benefits of reading. I want to emphasize or make parentheses that reading is an individual process, yes. On this method or this technique, you read together with other guys, you read by yourself, and then sometimes you read aloud with the teacher or with the other classmates. But at the end, after you comprehend the text, you discuss about it and you enjoy the benefits of reading. According to literature, reading circles, they are a method that exposes the benefits of reading on students. In this method, students read together, making clear the magic of learning collaboratively, besides enhancing the habit of reading. In one hand, as an individual, you got challenged to read an entire book, for example. I told you I have read The Little Prince and some other books during a term, during a period of 5 months of a course. And then reading together with other guys makes it clear that you are an individual who needs sharing time and sharing opinions with other guys, your teacher and other classmates, and they discuss the same book, they discuss the same topic, they make reflection on the situations given in a specific book or book chapter, and both processes go together, individually with the habit of reading and socially with all the benefits of reading. According to literature, the person who reads improves the social relationships because in this method, they discuss the topics or the books with other guys. And what I usually do is that, again, with some grammar in an implicit way, we reinforce some paragraphs, some sentences, we elaborate questions. All the tips I just gave you in the reading circles, they are possible. So students have reflection, share opinions, spend organized activities with other guys in a classroom. They got challenged to read more at home. They got challenged to investigate about the topic, about an author. A typical activity when reading a book is that you investigate about an author, the author of the book. You put yourselves in the situations of the text, and there are many benefits like acquiring more vocabulary, reinforcing grammar structures, discussing, obviously the name of the method is circle because you as a teacher, you put the class in a circle way so they can debate and see each other's faces. During the pandemic, we had the problem of not being together, but we still had the opportunity to use the platforms, like in this case, and simulate like a circle. And there are now documented or informed activities of e-reading circles, like electronic or virtual reading circles, and they are also an opportunity for you all. Imagine you having, as a teacher, international sessions of reading or other activities like today's with guys from other countries reading the same book, for example, or discussing about the same topic. That's a tip I give you. Reading circle is more like a method that implies more other activities or tips. And I wanted to share this with you this afternoon because I know about the topic.
This is so cool. I just was thinking about questions that I had in my mind about the reading circles. One was like if it had to be a long book or if it could be even like a short story or a one-page story
That's
like
an
the ones we have.
opportunity. Yes, that's an opportunity for your leadership. You give students options. Obviously, books that are planned to be read during the semester or the term, and then students decide and they come with their ideas. For example, I didn't know about the Hunger Games, the books and the movies, and my students suggested that they wanted to read those books, and as a compliment we saw the movies, and I remember that I had a customs contest with one of my groups, and the winners they got tickets that I sponsored to the last movie of the saga, and they went
Oh
to the
my God.
they went to the movies to enjoy what they have read already about the story of the Hunger Games, which is a critique, a very nice critique of the government and the empire and political situations in a society.
Very interesting. I haven't read The Hunger Games. Curious to read about it now. I
Very
do love
interesting.
that. So you connected all the book with the movie, the students' motivation to do it, a contest, you know. So I love that idea. It's really interesting. I haven't used it with my students yet, but I think it's a great idea. Start maybe small or anything, and then
Yes,
maybe
Lorena,
give
I really enjoy this
more.
because at the end you're not only a language teacher. At the end, you are their teacher. You are their leader, and they want to learn something from you. And if you, through English, you can teach some principles of life or some experiences, that's great. In the book, for example, of the Hunger Games, we learned about politics and social problems and how to be aware of suggesting justice in our lives. In The Little Prince, for example, you learn the lesson of never forget that you once were a child, because children, they have the principles of life implicitly. When we grow up, we forget many things, and that's where the problems come. But children, they are like a treasure that they imagine, they are creative, and that's what you learn from a book like The Little Prince, for example. And well, at the end, as I was telling you, you are not only the English teacher, you teach for life, for example.
That's true. That's totally true. Um, Thank you so much for all the tips that you share with us, Rafael. Thank you for inspiring and, sparking our imagination and creativity on ways in which we as teachers can use all these tips that you just shared in our classes and think about, ways in which, like you said, we are not only teaching a language, we are teaching more than that. So thank you so much, Rafael. It has been a pleasure. Um, I see Paola is still there. I don't know if she has a question, but of course we can also type in any questions. I can forward them to you. We can also send them through email. Rafael has shared his information with us here. So thank you so much, and our audience for joining us, and we'll have the recording of this available. Greetings from here to Mexico and to all your community, Rafael. Um, and thank you for your generosity, in sharing your expertise with us.
A pleasure, and enjoy your profession, dear teachers in Argentina and in South America. And my greetings and all my respect to the students. Without students, we can't have the process of education.
That's totally true too. Thank you so much, Rafael. Thank you, our audience. We'll see you guys next month with our next expert teacher tip session. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome.